This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Let's talk about winners and losers from Saturday's preseason games. We're going to start with wide receivers. I think there were two winners definitively for the Browns in this category. One is David Bell. Now, I see a lot of people writing off David Bell. And I don't necessarily get that. I don't think the Browns are so eager to get rid of David Bell that they would keep somebody like a Mike Woods over him. I think there's going to be a chance for a roster spot, if not a good chance for a roster spot for David Bell. What he does is he does little things well, right? He's not going to be somebody who hits you over the top, but at the end of last season, there were plenty of fourth down conversions or third down conversions where David Bell did come up big. And I think we're forgetting that David Bell contributed to the team last year, especially when you had the injury to Elijah Moore. He kind of popped up as the most reliable young receiver and had himself a good game in week 18 of the regular season as well. So David Bell, I feel like, has put together quietly a really strong body of work in the last months that he's played football. And it seems like that body of work has gotten ignored by a lot of people who talk about the team because it feels like David Bell's stock has gone like consistently down. But the truth is that I think David Bell's stock has been on a small but steady rise since November. Especially since November. And I think he's going to surprise some people and maybe even get some snaps if he continues to play well. Jamari Thrash is somebody that I think can move into a nice spot as a wide receiver eventually. I don't think year one is going to be it for him, right, when it comes to getting a ton of tick on the clock here for the Browns. But I think there's something there with Jamari Thrash. He's a smart, reliable hands, good wide receiver. I think of him as a utility guy, kind of the same way you would use a utility guy in baseball. I think of him as a utility wide receiver, not somebody who's going to be overwhelming with their statistical output, but somebody who's going to come in and be a benefit to the wide receiver room overall. Like, I think the best example of this is like a Willie Snead. And if Jamari Thrash could be a Willie Snead, that would be a big deal for him. Zaire Mitchell-Payton is somebody at tight end that I thought put together a winning performance on Saturday against the Green Bay Packers. Had a couple of nice moments. Thought he blocked well, moved well, did the things well. There's going to be, I feel like there might be a legitimate competition between Jordan Atkins and Zaire Mitchell-Payton, but that's not really the case because there's no third tight end. So the question is there going to be a third tight end on this team, or are they going to carry two? And if they carry two, I do think Zaire Mitchell-Payton can make it a more difficult conversation on whether they should keep Jordan Atkins or not. But to Jordan Atkins' credit, I thought he walked out this game a winner too. He looked good in this game. I think he upped his stock in this game. He didn't do a ton, but he did some of the stuff that you want to see him do well, right? Catching after the run, getting open in space, that kind of stuff you want to see him do. You want to see him do at a high level, and he did. DTR is another winner in this game. Again, he didn't show anything that makes me think that, oh, he's completely changed, but there was a lot of different things that made me feel better about where DTR is versus where he ended the season. He physically looks like he has gained weight, like muscle mass. I think that's a good thing for DTR, who looked very thin last year in the NFL. It's part of being a rookie transitioning. I think he had some more impressive throws than he had in last year's preseason, right? He was throwing, out that 25-yard range and making passes down the field, throwing on the opposite hash. Still looked like it took a lot out of him to do it, but he was still able to do it, and he didn't seem super rushed. it was the fourth quarter of a preseason game where we saw most of this. So you got to take it with a massive grain of salt. But if you're asking me, did DTR look the best out of every quarterback that played? Yes. It's not a fair scale to slide it on. Just because he looked the best doesn't mean he should be the backup, right? Because you're playing a sliding scale of players as the preseason game goes on. But DTR looked good. Looked like there was something worth pursuing there in this first preseason game. And I'm interested to see how he'll look in the second preseason game and how the Browns will manage the quarterbacks in that situation. Another thing that I liked about this preseason game, I'm going to put it in the winners category. You saw a lot of new stuff from the Browns offense when it comes to wide receiver alignments, when it comes to different packages, when it comes to RPOs. We saw our first read option in I don't know how long, right? Tyler Huntley kept it on a read option. Wow, you saw run pass options. These are things that we've been begging the Browns offense to have more of. And this is, I think, the first time in the Kevin Stefanski era that we've seen some of this stuff in the preseason. So we might have saw some RPOs in Deshaun Watson's first preseason game in 2022. But outside of that very weird and special situation, you haven't seen it. So that's really good. We go over to the defensive side. Some of my winners. I got to mention the linebackers when it comes to winners for this game. Thought the linebackers across the board played well. Two standouts, Mahmoud Diabate and Devin Bush. Devin Bush less so than Mahmoud, but Devin Bush I thought played well, much better than he did in his stays in Pittsburgh and in Seattle. Showed some promise there that I don't think he's shown in quite a while. Mahmoud Diabate looks like somebody who could play. And I'm interested to see how Tony Fields looks because that's another guy that they have a lot of faith in is Tony Fields. I'm interested to see what the rest of his linebacking crew works. We got to start giving Jason Tarver some credit, the Browns linebacking coach, because every year we go into it panicking about the linebackers. We're not going to be deep at linebacker, Quincy. We have bad linebackers. We don't have any names. But then we get into the season, the Browns shed through a million different linebackers, and Jason Tarver ends up having somebody ready. Right? Tony Fields was ready to 1 year, got like a pick six in the game. Then we fast forward to this year last year and had a lot of guys ready. Anthony Walker played well. Sione Taki played well. Jason Tarver deserves a lot of credit. He's done a lot of good work. Look what he's done with JOK over the years. The 1 year where the linebacking play was awful, 100% really had a lot to do with what the defensive line situation was, which was a catastrophic situation down there in Cleveland. So I think Jason Tarver deserves a lot of credit. His linebackers always look ready. There's always good linebacker play in these preseason games. He's always developing special team specialists. Jason Tarver had these linebackers ready, and they looked ready. And Mahmoud Diabate, I think he might play a little bit this year. I really do. But the linebackers stood out. Brady Breeze. Thought Brady Breeze was out there moving around, breezing around the field quite nice. Made some nice tackles, made some nice reads. I thought he looked really good out there. I think there's some real special teams potential with him. The only issue with Brady is I'm not 100% sure if he's listed as a safety or if he's listed as a linebacker. I would have to look at his roster page to be sure, but I'm pretty sure he's listed as a safety. And that's just going to be a tough ask to make this roster as a safety. There's like 4 or 5 guys on the roster already are going to not just make the team, but possibly have some playing time. And it's going to be hard to ask him to keep 6 of them just for one to be special teams. If he can fit into the linebacker rotation, or if he's in the linebacker rotation, he has a much better chance to make the roster. All right, let's look at some guys who stood out when it comes to Pro Football Focus grades. I haven't had the chance to look at it. The All 22 hasn't come out to confirm this, but Pro Football Focus is saying that they played well. So if you want to go back and try to watch it from the broadcast film to see if you can confirm it, you're more than welcome to. Just giving you this information. Nate Watson was impressive. They call him Bookie Watson. So apparently he was impressive in this game, had the highest Pro Football Focus grade if you care about that thing. And again, it's more of a Wikipedia page than a definitive stat line on if he played good or not. But they gave Nat Watson the highest grade of any defender in 10 snaps. Limited sample size, but apparently they saw something that they felt like was very encouraging. When you're watching the game live, you're watching a bunch of different things, but it is worth pointing out that that's Pro Football Focus grades. They thought he played well. Ja'Wan Briggs and Chris Williams were the Browns' 2 highest graded defensive interior players. And Chris Williams is somebody that I've been hearing a lot of when it comes to camp reports, and he might be somebody who can sneak his way into that rotation and maybe upset a familiar name like a Mo Hurst. Ja'Wan Briggs looked good out there, and that's significant because we're going to talk about the losers, and one of the guys who plays the same positions, I thought he had a bad showing in this game. But that's good for Ja'Wan Briggs, who is kind of a nose at this point. Let's look at the losers, and we're going to start with the guy I referenced, Siaki Ika. I don't see it. I don't see it, man. Like, I went in the video before this, I begged them to make me look wrong. Does it look like it's there to any of you guys? I know people want to give him the off season to see if things change, and then, it looked like he had lost weight. I wasn't 100% sure if him losing weight would be anything that would help him, because I think he is not one of those guys who's going to slim down and be a great athlete. And I don't know if he was slimmed down in this game, but he wasn't very useful. Getting pushed off the ball still. The length still seems to be a problem. The lack of overall athleticism still seems to be a problem. I mean, this looks like the guy I really didn't want the Browns to take coming out of Baylor. I didn't see anything to even make me consider moving off of that, and I am super open to being wrong about this. It's just not happening there with Ika, and it's not good that Ja'Wan Briggs walks in there in one day as a rookie and looks better than I've ever seen Siaki Ika look. And it's not like Ja'Wan Briggs brought the house down. He just looked better. Don't know what to do with that. I know he's a 3rd round pick. I know the Browns don't typically cut 3rd round picks, but I feel like we're in the Anthony Schwartz situation where it might be on the table, right? Might be one of those times where they realize they made a mistake and they're just going to have to let it go. Just going to have to eat this one. Give it 3 more weeks. Give him the whole training camp. Maybe he'll tap into something and start playing like how some people believed he could coming out of Baylor. But if you weren't a fan of Siaki Ika as a prospect, Siaki Ika, the professional player, has not done anything to dissuade your opinion of him in his 1 year in the NFL and his 1 preseason game. Well, his 1.25 preseasons that he's played. So that is something to keep in mind there with Siaki Ika. Khalif Halisi, they thought you was food, dog. They were looking for you actively in this game. And I was shocked because I didn't think Khalif Halisi was that bad coming into it. But apparently they saw something in you that they felt like could be taken advantage of. Maybe it's just a bad game. Maybe he'll play better. All right, let's talk about rotational defensive line guys being on the loser list. Quentin Jefferson, Mo Hurst, Obo Okoronkwo, Alex Wright, all not that impressive in this game. Just did not get the pressure that you wanted out of them. Did not really play with the same energy that you expected. Definitely was a defensive line that looked flat out there. You wouldn't panic too much about it. Maybe it's just a bad game. But it was something to note, and it was something that put them in the loser category for this week. Another set of losers, I think, for this week, and this is more competition based. All right, so I got Jermaine Ifedi and James Hudson here on the loser list as well. just wasn't a very impressive showing from either of them on either side. I think Jermaine played on the right side. The only tackle I thought played decently in this game was probably Hakeem Adeniji. And that's not saying much. Like, I don't think Hakeem was great in this game either. But Jermaine Ifedi, he looks old out there, which is crazy to say to me because I remember when Jermaine Ifedi got drafted. But anyways, Jermaine Ifedi just looked old. He looked rusty. Maybe he looks better in the second preseason game. James Hudson, he's serviceable, right? Like, we know that you could put James Hudson in a game, and if that's the only injury you have, you can make that work, right? Like, you can patchwork around that. That's been what James Hudson has been for a very long time. And it's just frustrating that he hasn't developed past that. But that's it for winners and losers. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.